down the hammer and pick up the pencil. You're about to listen to the Savvy Radio Show. Learn from real-life real estate investors, experience revealed with the Savvy Landlord as your host.
Good day, Savvy investors. I'm going to break it down. Protect your interest to cover your asset. This is something that I learned that I wish I would have learned earlier, and I didn't know you could do that. And it is kind of, the goal of real estate is to control the paper, to lock up the contract. But just you, by locking up the contract, doesn't necessarily mean protect your interest. That is right. And to be honest with you, I thought people just honored contracts. Like, hey, I got a contract with you and we're all good to go. That is not necessarily true. Well, what do you mean? Well, yeah, you have a contract, but that doesn't mean the other person's going to honor that contract. And if it's truly not notarized. So again, the goal here is to have control the paper, control the deal. So let me give you an example. If you have something under contract and then that person changes their mind, are you screwed? Not necessarily. In Oklahoma, and I'm assuming in other parts of the country, you can file that contract. Well, you can't, anyone can make up a signature, right? Now, of course, you don't necessarily have it notarized. So like you go negotiate a deal with someone and they agree to your terms and you get a contract, they sign the contract, you're great. Normally, you just pass that contract on to the title company and you're good to go. Everything seems fine. The process is going good. But what if someone shows up and offers more money and you, now you're in a bidding war per se? Well, how do you cloud the title? And that's the goal here is to protect your interest and cover your asset. And how do you do that? Well, you file an affidavit. Now, an affidavit is of who you are. You now have interest in that property. You go get that affidavit notarized. So basically, you go sign a contract with someone. Great, we're good. But you feel kind of sketchy. You know you're going to flip this deal. The seller seems kind of sketchy. You don't know if this is going to go down, or you're worried about your market is so hot that you're worried about someone swooping in and getting your deal. Now, I just want to, give you a heads up. It happens. So how to prevent that? How to protect your interest? You go down to the courthouse and you file that contract. And on top of that contract, you file an affidavit saying, I am in good standing with this contract. I agree with this contract and so on and so forth. And basically, you just clouded the title. So if someone, for example, if that person, the seller, goes off and sells the property to somebody else, let's say sign a contract with someone else, it's going to be jammed up. Doesn't matter if they go to the title company because you have interest that is filed with an affidavit with the county clerk. So hopefully that's the gist there, that you get it. That's how you lock it up. You lock it up with the contract. You're talking to wholesalers, but you really want to file the affidavit if you feel kind of sketchy about it. So why? Well, ultimately, you want to protect your interest. No one else is going to protect your interest but yourself. Sellers are desperate. And I was just talking to an investor earlier today. Shouts out to you, homie. He dropped into the office and he locked up a contract and he put a sign out front and the next door neighbor offered more. And it was $3,000. Now he hasn't lost, or the contract hasn't go bust. Now he could, and I should have educated him on this, he could have ran down to the courthouse, locked it up, but he locked it up for $47,000. He says it's worth about 60 something. And it's not a smoking deal. It's a pretty decent deal in a pretty decent neighborhood. But for $12 a filing fee, I would lock it up because it clouds the title, even if you don't do the interest. I mean, you have no interest in that you don't have no interest in what you're going to do with the property. So also, buyers are greedy. And, it's hard to say, I'm a buyer for life. That's all I'm going to do is buy assets. But I don't feel like I'm going to go around someone, but sure enough, it happens. People get all excited or emotional. They have to have this specific property or they're going to expect a windfall, and they go around you. You have it under contract and they convince the other person that it's worth more. And let me tell you something. Has that happened? Absolutely. this not just happened. This happened to me. I wrote about this in my book, The Savvy Landlord. But there was a guy in my building. I had a different office at the time. He was an insurance agent upstairs, and he decided to get into real estate. And I was like, oh, great. So he was in real estate, and then he decided to move from Oklahoma to Colorado. Okay, it's a pretty normal jump. So he's like, hey, I got this triplex I'm interested in selling. I'm like, I'm interested in buying. That's what I do. And so I drove over with him, hand-in-hand combat here. Looked at the property, and I was like, this is money maker. Duplex in the front, garage apartment in the back. I can't go wrong. But this guy was in my office. Now, here's another trick for you. Always have a blank contract on you. I have it in the back of my seat in my truck. I'm going to be in my grave when you put me down, there's going to be, I'm going to be crispy, like Krispy Kreme, but I'm just saying I'm going to burn me up. But still, when they're burning me up, I'm like, please throw an assignment contract in there. But for real, I'm just saying you always should carry a contract with you. Well, I drove over to the property. He showed it to me. Everything's great. And then he's like, okay, man, tomorrow I'll get you the contract. I should have got the guy to lock up a contract then. Well, the next morning, couldn't get a hold of the guy, dodges my call. So I freaking walk upstairs because he's upstairs. And he's like, yeah, I just became a real estate agent, and I sent this information over to my broker to help me write a contract because I haven't done a contract before. And my broker says it's worth more, $10,000 more, and he already has a buyer. I mean, for real, like, you know what it's worth. You're the one that we negotiated. It wasn't like I was stiff-arming this dude. But this is shady people out there, shady brokers, shady real estate agents. I'm not trying to dog you cats out there. There's shady investors like me out there. I'm not like me, but real estate investors that are shady. You need to do your due diligence, no doubt. And what frustrates me, this is a non-police orchestration. So unless you have that contract recorded at the county courthouse, nothing can stop anyone from happening. So I'm going to read a question that I read online not too long ago, and it's pretty fascinating. And another time this happened to me was, and I actually did an affidavit, I did a wholesale deal, and I got it under contract. I actually flipped the contract. I went back, the buyer wanted to look at the house one more time just to ensure, and I was like, no problem. And drove over there, and the locks was changed. I couldn't get in the property. First of all, I looked real bad that my buyer's standing there, and I couldn't open the door. I was extremely frustrated. But at the back of my mind, I was nervous that, am I going to lose this deal? I already have it under contract. So I ran down and filed an affidavit to secure my interest in the property. Protect yourself, secure it, nothing happened. So here's a couple of quick questions. Will a title company protect my interest in a contract? No, they don't. They can, I wouldn't say the word clock box. You know what I'm saying? They can kind of smooth things over, but if it's not recorded, if it's not public record, a lawyer or nothing can do anything about it. So here's a question that I found online. I am buying a home that is for sale by owner, also known as a FSBO. I have been told so many different things. Use a realtor, write up a contract, use a lawyer to do it, use a title company, have the seller write a contract and have a realtor look at it, have the seller write them and have a lawyer look at it. If I have a title company write it up, the contract for my offer, would that be sufficient? No. First of all, a title company won't write a contract for you. They don't do legal advice. They're not registered realtors. They handle the transaction. They're escrow people. They just make sure everyone is happy on both sides. They handle the transaction. Okay. So they can't really enforce anything. They will, for sure. I know they won't give you a contract. Okay. You Google this up, your state, and get a contract. It's public domain. A real estate contract for your market is free. Now, I have a unique contract that I just modified over time just to cut out all the BS so it doesn't overwhelm, someone that's trying to sell a property. It's real small. It's just 2 pages. I keep it down and dirty. This is what I'm buying it for. This is the legal description. This is where we're going to close. This is what's going to happen. A contract is a contract. that two parties agree on something. Does that make sense? So don't assume that you're going to get protection. Now, you can get title insurance on the purchase of the property if you do close at a closing company, and I recommend that you do close at a closing company so you do have some sort of protection for the title, meaning that it's guaranteed for your part of the title from there forward, that it's clean and clear title. All right, let me reiterate. I'm not trying to blast the title companies or realtors. I just want to make sure that you are responsible for the transaction. Now, realtors do get paid from the sellers usually, and I recommend using a realtor at all times to handle the transaction. If you're a real estate investor, you do a lot of transactions without realtors, and you actually are paying a realtor. You're just not licensed. Now, let me talk to you about the title company. I did a podcast not too long ago about title companies and how important they are and how you should use them. No doubt you should be using title companies and building relationships. But you got to think about it like this. Title companies may or may not have your best interest in mind. Most title companies do have an attorney, and they're managed by a group of people. But here's the deal. There has been some title companies that don't necessarily like you. There's one title company out there that doesn't like me because one day I changed the transaction from a cash transaction to a finance transaction, and they had to do a little extra work, and they hammered me with a fee, and I just said, no, I'm not paying it. And we went round and round over a fee that's just ridiculous. So now, do you really think that gal at that closing company is going to go the extra mile for me? No, she's not. She doesn't care about me. She just wants to do the transaction so she can get her closing fees. Now, on the other side, I use this company that's outstandingly amazing, and they're just give me full service. They know that the type of volume that we do as a company and the referrals that we give, and they go the extra mile. For example, I needed something, an easement document drafted. They already had it. They just forwarded it to me. You need to go to a title company. I'm not blasting title companies. I know a lot of real estate investors out there. You do table closings. I'm not necessarily saying that's wrong, but you should do a title search. Make sure you have clear title. But ultimately, if you ask me the question, should you use a title company? Absolutely. I believe you should. It's a cost of doing business. It makes your life easier down the line when it's a smooth transaction. Here's something that I just recently learned, that another feather. And again, this is all to protect you as a real estate investor, and you need to be reversed on contracts. You need to actually read the contract, and I recommend that you understand and know the contract. And if you don't, that's cool. Ask somebody to help you and read it and just go over it. Believe me, it seems intimidating, but it's not. But here's the final thought that you need to take away with you. So I'm a real estate investor. I do assign contracts, meaning I'll go in, negotiate the contract. I may keep the property. I may not. I may lock it up, and then you assign that contract to someone else. Okay, so that all makes sense. So I lock the contract up for $100,000, and I assign my interest in that contract to somebody else for $110,000. I make a $10,000 profit, or a $2,000 profit, or even a $5,000. All that above is gravy because you did your job of negotiating the contract down. Now, this is what you other wholesalers out there need to do. And of course, I buy from wholesalers myself. So, and I usually wouldn't flip it, but put in your contract that you can't assign a signable contract. I got stung. Thank God that wholesaler did me a solid and gave me the percentage of the deal. What happened was I walked into this house. I was like, this is a moneymaker. I was like, hey, wholesaler, how much do you want for this? They said, I want $125,000. I was like, no problem. Done. Lock me up. They locked it up at $100,000. So that wholesaler is like, man, I got a $25,000 payday. Da, 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 da. They're doing great. They assign it to me for $125,000. I know a buyer that's going to buy it for $170,000 for real. The market's super hot. Poppity pop. It's in a hot area, off the chain. 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 2-car garage, 1,700 square foot, brick, doing it big in a hot area. I knew I could get $170,000 for it. So I assigned that contract to someone else. another investor who was just looking for a solid $2,200 a month rental. And guess what? During closing, the contract that I got from that wholesaler said you can't assign it. It stopped me, but I went back and negotiated with that person and said, hey, I have a buyer willing to buy it at this number. Can we work out a deal? Because I was kind of SOL on the deal. It says on the contract, and the title company that I went with, they honored that on the original contract that smart wholesaler told me. So that's the caveat here. Or not the caveat. That's the lesson. If you're wholesaling properties and you're wholesaling contracts to someone else, put in your contract, you cannot assign a signable contract. That was a lot of information today. Anyway, hopefully inspired you, hopefully and helps you in some way. Email me, text me, holla at your peoples. Let me know if this is beneficial for you or a subject that you want me to cover. Tune in tomorrow. Got a fabulous subject 2 deal that I just closed on. I think that'll inspire you. Shouts out for all the people that encourage me, and I appreciate you. But whatever you do, the goal not is to be rich so you can be rolling around in your little Mercedes or your Ferrari. If that's you, that's all good and gravy. But what you should do is give back. Give back on the radio, give back to a charity, give back to a wonderful cause called Whiz Kids. It should be in your local market. It's an opportunity to help at-risk youth read more and tutor more. If you can't volunteer to teach someone to read, what you can do is volunteer your cash and help somebody else. That's why I'm in real estate. Make extra cash and bless somebody else with it. Whatever you do, go buy assets.
Thanks for listening to the Savvy Radio Show. Glide online and listen to our other motivating episodes at SavvyRadioShow.com. Connect on Twitter at LandlordBook and always be buying assets.